Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have an import 2-course meal, Gmode Archives Plus Exerion DX, and Argear. What kind of taste will they have? Let's get cooking and find out. Exerion DX, originally from developer Jalico, and Argear from developer Taito, released for the Nintendo Switch in August of 2025, though only on the Japanese eShop. Today's 2-course meal features a couple smaller shoot-'em-ups that I've had a lot of fun with and wanted to share with the community. They're both at this point in time exclusive to the Japanese eShop, so they will be imports for most people, but I do feel that they're interesting enough they warrant looking at if you're a fan of shoot-'em-ups. Exerion DX is an archive port of the feature phone release from 2002. And Argear is the prototype demo of the scrapped Ray4 sequel. This was included as a bonus for the physical release of the Ray's Arcade Chronology, but other than that title, it's been unavailable until this standalone release. I'm really happy to have access to this title after all this time. Both titles are a little on the shorter side, and given their import nature, might not necessarily be for everybody, but if you're into shoot-'em-ups, then these are definitely worth at least having to look at. For our first course, we have Gmode Archives Plus version of Exerion DX, originally released in 2002. This is the feature phone port of the 1983 arcade classic. Though pared back a little bit from that version, it's still a really fun representation of the title itself, and it would have been great to have this one on a phone back in 2002. Starting up the emulation, we're taken to the gameplay here, and if you haven't played a Gmode Archives title, you can see a little bit of the fun presentation the game has. So it does have this frame, but if you don't like to have that cell phone look, we can go into the menu itself, turn that off, and then move on. Another thing that's really neat about this title is it does have an online ranking, so you can compare your scores against others. Unfortunately, this is a title that I don't expect to see released internationally, so the import version is probably the only way you're going to be able to play this particular title. Starting it up, so you can see it has the classic scroll of the original arcade title, and we also have some of that momentum-based movement, so you kind of have that drift, and one of the things we're trying to go and do is lead the enemies around so we can more easily take them out. The 2-shot system that we have from the original also is present in this title. We have our dual shot, which is significantly slower, but will generate charge for our single shot, which we can rapid fire. So you want to choose your times to use your single shot, as it's ultimately going to be your more effective against greater numbers of enemies. But building up that shot with the dual shot is what we want to go and do. So sometimes the enemies will move off to the side of the screen. You have to go and rotate and move around the screen itself to ultimately move them into an area where we'll be able to target the enemies. As we progress through the waves, we'll see new and potentially bonus enemies like these fighters show up. And we'll also get some different backgrounds as we fight through the various waves. Some of the backgrounds are a little bit hard to see, specifically with the enemy shots. When we get to the second background, these clouds can obscure the enemy shots. But I did want to go and say, I feel like even though this is a simpler version of the title than like the original arcade, it's still just a lot of fun to sit and blast through the enemies and rack up a high score. Being able to score attack it against others as well is very satisfying. So we'll move through the different enemies themselves, and we'll ultimately get to the point where we hit a bonus stage where we can score extra points and earn additional charges for our single shot cannon. And with that, you basically have what we have here for Exerion DX. So it's definitely a fun port to look at, but between the two, this is the one that I feel is definitely more of an enthusiast title to check out, as it's not going to go and be for everybody's taste, and the more difficult nature of picking this one up as an import makes it a little harder to recommend. But with that said, I certainly have had a lot of fun with this one myself. And now for our second course, we have Argeir, the cancelled Rayforce sequel. As I mentioned in the intro, this title was included as a bonus for the Ray's Arcade Chronology, though only for the physical version, so it's great to have it now as a download title. One thing to keep in mind, this is only a one-stage prototype demo, so although the price point is great, it is a relatively short title. It does have English throughout, so I feel there's a pretty high probability this one will eventually release outside of Japan, and hopefully for other platforms than just the Nintendo Switch. Ray's Arcade Chronology is available for the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4, as well as the PC. So starting up the emulation here, you can definitely see that this is still a prototype, as when the arcade system boots up, we don't even have a proper title screen here, it just simply says Argeir, and then insert coin. So if you've played other titles like, say, the Arcade Archives, the whole coin system here is the same. We basically are using the left bump to add credits and the right bump to start. Starting up the game, you can see some of the similarities to the title this was going to be a sequel to, Rayforce, or as you might otherwise know it as, Layer Section, or Galactic Attack. There's a lot of similarities with the attacks and the systems to the whole series as well. So we have our primary shot, but in addition to that, we also have the lock-on laser system that the series is known for. So for the Player 1 ship, you can get up to 16 lock-ons with your laser, and then it will fire a lightning bolt that moves through all those enemies. The more lock-ons you have, the more points you'll earn for the enemies that are destroyed. As far as the Player 2 ship is concerned, you can get up to 8 lock-ons, and those ones will fire a single laser at the enemy itself that is quite powerful. My overall preference is actually the Player 2 ship, but it's great that there is a difference between those two ships. As far as power-ups are concerned, so we can increase the number of laser lock-ons we have by picking up the green power-ups that have been dropped by the enemies, but we also can increase our shot by picking up these red power-ups. It does take 3 of those to level up your shot 1 level though. That is something to keep in mind. So with this being a Tate presentation, it is actually possible to play this particular prototype in Tate, so I'm glad that they included that option as well. So I really had a lot of fun with this demo, though short it may be. It just is a great promise of what could have been. As far as Argeir itself is concerned, apparently there were 2 stages completed in the demo before the game was cancelled, and they decided to go the different direction and developed Raystorm instead, which is a great title, but it would have been awesome to go and get even more of the Ray series and had this title completed as well. Though I'm still really happy that they completed this prototype and that they've also made it available as something more than just that bonus on the physical release, as that one isn't necessarily the easiest one to pick up at this point in time. The demo itself does ultimately end with a boss fight that we're coming up on here, and it does a great job of showing off the way that the combat in this game is, as well as just the graphics, since we were fighting over a space colony the whole time, and now we can see the colony in space behind us. So for this particular boss fight, we've got lock-on targets on the left and right, and then there's some turrets in the middle that we have to use our primary shots on. So we're moving back and forth, being careful to dodge the shots and get our shots in there. As I mentioned, I do prefer the Player 2 ship, as I feel it's easier to get more shots in quicker than the lightning laser. And with that, we find ourselves at the end of this 2-course meal. We have Exerion DX and our gear served up for your enjoyment. Both really fun shoot 'em ups, though smaller, more bite-sized titles to be sure, and imports both, so they're a little bit harder to obtain. However, if you really enjoy some interesting shoot 'em ups that are either a unique prototype of something that could have been, or just a unique take on a arcade classic, they're both definitely worth looking into, and I've had a lot of fun with both. So with that said, we want to thank you so much for joining us. As always, we hope you have a wonderful week, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.